Tory MPs I've spoken to talk about it as though it's putting down a dog. It's best to do it, get it done.
Now, if you look at the graphs of recent YouGov polls, the figures bounce up and down, but the trend lines start to become clear. Reform UK is definitely on the way up. Labour seems pretty flat. The Conservative line seems to be starting to edge downwards. In today's YouGov poll for The Times, the Conservatives are on just 19%. That is the lowest since the Truss days. Reform are on 15%, so not that far behind. Freddie, this is one poll, but none of them are good for the Conservatives right now. How do they, when they look at these polls, what goes through their mind? What flashes before their eyes?
Death and destruction, I think, probably. It's not just one poll. I mean, this is a clear trend. Reform has been picking up considerable steam in the polls. And I don't know if you follow cryptocurrency world, but there's a lot of talk about flippening in cryptocurrency world, which is when one very established cryptocurrency gets replaced by a new and emerging one. And I heard somebody talking about Reform's flippening yesterday, which I thought was quite telling. Obviously, it would be hugely significant if the Tory party, the oldest and most successful political party in the history of Britain, was suddenly to be overtaken in the polls by Reform, which is a startup. And yet that is a realistic possibility. So we have to start talking about it. And the Tories are in terrible, terrible trouble. If Reform starts picking up a couple more points, I think you're going to see more MPs leaving for Reform, leaving the Conservative Party for Reform. And I think we will have to start seriously considering the collapse of the Tory party. Of course, the Tory party has always faced great crises before and sort of found a way to survive. But this is as significant as it gets.
I'm sure this has happened before. It's not novel in any way, in that we're in an election year. Therefore, you have to stay on message. But if you look at how people feel in terms of how much money or not they have in their pockets, if you look at the infrastructure of the trains, the potholes in the roads, etc., people feel that things are going really badly, and then they're told, and some of them say that they feel gaslit. Because the government, the Conservatives, say everything's really good, it's just round the corner, this is going to be the year, etc., etc., etc. And I think that's very difficult. But Freddie, presumably in an election year, is there no other message that perhaps takes into account the state of the country as many people seem to see it? Is there no other tune that they could sing that was more realistic?
The Conservative Party?
Yes.
Well, I think they're hoping that the economy achieves some miracle in the next few months, which it might. But the problem is that however good, as we see in America, however good the kind of macroeconomic indicators get, people don't feel it.
Yeah.
And that's what happens after a period of significant inflation. It takes a long time for people to feel as though they're better off. The Tories are in dire, dire trouble. And there's no way for them really to get out of it.
Goodness me. Ashley, what advice would you offer the Conservatives right now when they're staring at these polls?
It's the economy, stupid. No, look, if it looks, macro indicators might look good, but do people actually feel it? Do they feel that their lives are getting better? And does anyone actually promise to make their lives better in material ways? We're always, the major parties are so complacent. They feel like they can talk about peripheral issues like they're the biggest things ever, like Starmer talking about, oh, well, let's have assisted dying, as though that's not the most horrible thing that's happened in Canada for a long time, because they think it's just a no-brainer. Oh yeah, everybody's going to be on board for that. What do people actually want? They want, promise us a better life, not a better death. Like, so I would say, you need to focus on the big issues, on making people's lives better, on having a plan that is. And I know that they've been burned by this in the past, so maybe this is why they don't want to do it, but having a kind of plan for economic revival that is exciting and that actually hits people at home and in their pockets.
Freddie, do you think it's a bit late for that now? And the other thing, of course, is that they would say, well, hang on a second, there's this 4 pence cut in national insurance that they talk about every time they come on. That's something that people should, some people, not all, but some people should feel in their pockets.
Yes, I think, if they could move towards a smaller state, a lower fiscal burden, they could win back some Tory voters. But it's very difficult now because at the moment, after so long in government, no conservative people, small c conservative people, want to vote Conservative. And that is that is a problem for a Conservative party, very obviously.
Do you believe in the just tearing off the plaster? I'll ask both of this, but start with you, Freddie. Actually, is it better to have an election now and get the pain out the way rather than the slow, lingering death, which might actually be worse for the party in the long run?
I think entirely, yeah. I think it's Tory MPs I've spoken to talk about it as though it's putting down a dog. You know, it's best to do it, get it done.
Ashley, would you agree with that? That maybe better for the party actually if we had an election, they get tonked. Maybe it's not quite as bad as they expect, and at least they can start rebuilding.
Yeah, that's clearly what they need at the moment. And the thing is, too, is that both parties are competing with each other to be more terrible, right? Like just, when they go to the poll, who's the least bad option? And what's really scaring them is the rise of other parties and populism and that sort of thing. So they're going to want to go to the polls as soon as possible. But I think the real problem is that there's a political void in this country and in a lot of countries where no major party is really speaking to people in terms that they want, and speaking to their actual needs. And I think the major parties will probably want to go to the polls as quickly as possible to quell that.